back to the rotor. So this is a rotor from a different clock, identical to the one that I pulled out of the orderly. And there are a number of different ways. Everything comes down to the rotor, really. At least 90% of the reason why the Telechron clocks are not working or working properly is because of the rotor. The reason is Telechron made this rotor, and inside of it there's a whole bunch of gears and passageways. Originally they put oil inside of it, and over time that oil hardens, becomes like sludge, and then it prevents movement inside the rotor, and that's what causes the clock to stop or even make sounds. So what we have to do to get the clock working again is we have to get the old oil out of there, and we have to put new oil in. And there's a number of ways to do this, and so you can explore whichever way you want to go. I drill the rotor case, which means that I'm going to put a hole in this outer case of the rotor, and where a safe place to do it, if you notice there are two rows of letters and numbers here, this one right in the middle, I go and I make a dot with a Sharpie right to the right of this row of letters and numbers in the middle, and I found that's a safe place to drill the case of the rotor. So that's what I've done with the one that I took out of the orderly we're working on. And I have a drill press, makes it easier. You don't need a drill press, you can do it with a hand drill. But I've made this hole right here, and I have an ultrasonic cleaner. And so what I did is I put lacquer thinner in the ultrasonic cleaner and turned it on for half an hour. And then what I did is turn this upside down, let it drain overnight. And here's the paper towel. You can see that purplish blue is the old oil that drained out of there with the lacquer thinner overnight. So now that I've done that, what I want to do is I want to clean out the inside and get all the old oil out. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take some lacquer thinner, and I'm just going to take a hypodermic needle, draw some of the lacquer thinner up into the hypodermic needle, and then inject it into the rotor. Now, when I started, I used these hypodermic needles. You can buy them at the pharmacy, pretty cheap. I learned a couple of things. One, not all the needles are the same size. So some of these needles on the disposable syringes really small, so it takes all day. So that's not a great idea. This one's much larger. I use a 1/16 drill bit to drill into the rotor, and so this size will fit right in there. So anyway, initially I used these, and what I found was this rubber seal here, after a certain number of uses, say 5 to 7, would come off, because these are really only used to be used once. So if you're just doing one clock, you might use that, but I do a number of them. So what I want to do was get the type of syringe where it doesn't have that rubber gasket. These old glass syringes, found pretty cheap on eBay out of the ex-Soviet countries. So this one is particularly large, that I use for cleaning out the rotors. What I did was I took some epoxy and put this larger needle on it, because the needle it came with was pretty small. And what I do is just draw up into the syringe an amount of lacquer thinner, usually something like that. And what I'm going to do is just stick the needle into this hole here and then depress the plunger. And after I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my thumb over that hole, and now I'm going to shake the rotor back and forth. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get that lacquer thinner to move around in there and remove any remaining original oil that's in there. And I want to do this in different directions. So going like this, different direction. You hear that clicking. You're supposed to hear that clicking when you're moving in this direction. In fact, if you don't hear that clicking, that's a problem. Okay, so that's normal. So I want to move it just back and forth, different directions. And then I'm simply going to take my syringe and put it back in and draw out the lacquer thinner. And what I expect to find is that the lacquer thinner I take out of there is not going to be clear, and it isn't. I don't know if you'd see this, but it's that bluish purple color. So it did pick up some of the original oil there, if we want to get out. And I'm just going to take this as a waste pot, a little coffee can with some old paper towels in it, and I'm just going to squirt that in there. And then I'm going to do it again. Now, let's say you don't have a ultrasonic cleaner. You're just working on one clock. You want to get running again. You don't have to put the rotor through ultrasonic cleaning. You can just use this method here of injecting it with lacquer thinner, shaking it about until it comes out clear. The ultrasonic cleaner is nice. You know, we would expect that by running it through the ultrasonic cleaner that it would get it cleaner faster. Okay, but you can just use lacquer thinner like this to get out the old oil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this around, and I'm going to keep injecting it and pulling out the lacquer thinner until the lacquer thinner comes out clear and clean, and then move on to the next step.